Hello and good Erev Shabbos as we prepare for Shabbat. If anyone can please let me know that the sound is working, as this is our typical check-in. I'm still tormented. I'm still scarred by the time I gave a 25-minute sermon and realized at the end that nobody was hearing what I said. So if somebody can just quickly send a note so I can see that we are on and everything is working, that would be great. Yeah, here I see a comment. Great sound. All right. Thanks for letting me know. All right, my dear friends, as we begin our weekly broadcast, our weekly Shabbos sermon, I want to remind you that, I don't have to remind you, but Shavuot is coming Sunday night. Monday and Tuesday is the great Jewish holiday of Shavuot. And we have a lot of programming still on before Shavuot, during Shavuot. If you go to our website, jewishcenter.info/Shavuot, make sure there's a T at the end. It doesn't have to be capital, but I just want to make sure, because if you do an S, you're going to go to a different website. So jewishcenter.info/Shavuot, and you'll have all the activities that are going on here in Bucks County, Yardley, Newtown, Doylestown, as well as a general informational site about the holiday. So if you don't live in the area and you're listening in, that's for you as well. And as I mentioned last week, that I would love to entertain questions on what we are talking about and what we're discussing. So if anybody has a question while I'm speaking, don't hesitate to put it into the comment section, either on YouTube or Facebook. And at the end, I will choose a question and we will respond and reply to that. Excuse me. So, my dear friends, there's so much going on the Jewish, in the Jewish world, both in terms of our rituals, our celebrations, as well as news. We're getting ready for the Shabbos before Shavuos. Next week, we celebrate for the 3,333rd time, 3333. A very beautiful number. The number 3 itself is connected for Shavuos, but you can Google that. We're not going to discuss that today. But it's a beautiful holiday. It's a holiday of the spring. Summer is about to come. Beautiful menus, light menus, dairy menus, flowers. And we think about that gorgeous time that the desert was transformed into a garden for us to receive the Torah. And yet, there's a lot of stuff going on with our Jewish brothers and sisters in the Holy Land of Israel that really is not cause for celebration. So I want to begin with the meme that I saw, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, which discussed it as follows. It says, the description of the description of the school year in Israel. Zoom, zoom, boom, boom, zoom. Zoom, zoom, boom, boom, zoom. And it's a cute way of describing a very serious situation of the great upheaval that has been taking place in the world, and particularly in Israel. The children going to school first had to be misplaced from their classroom into their bedroom or dining room via Zoom. And now the children have to be displaced from their bedroom to the bomb shelter room at night to go to sleep. And therefore they can't go to school because of fear of the rockets. My dear friends, as many of you know, I have my own children in Israel and grandchildren. And this is something very real, the fear, not only the fear of, God forbid, being hurt, but even when you feel protected, the upheaval in the life of how we're going to deal with the children in the middle of the night, waking them up, bringing them down to the shelter. This is a real discomfort. This is real upheaval. And therefore, that saying of zoom, zoom, boom, boom, in my opinion, doesn't just describe the Israeli education year, but really describes what people are going through. Here, as in Israel, here, as in U.S., things seem to be getting back to normal, as things are slowly easing off with new guidelines and new news about what we need to do, when we need to do, and things seem every day there's new news getting us back to normal. In Israel, it just doesn't seem to stop. Now that they have Corona under control, first it was Miron just a few weeks ago, which dealt with one city in Israel, one section of the population. Now it's the entire Israel, the entire population, which is a really, really sad situation. So the first thing I want to do is take this opportunity to offer a prayer that on behalf of all our brothers and sisters in the land of Israel, a prayer for all the soldiers that are defending our Jewish brothers and sisters in the land of Israel, and the government officials who have to make some very, very crucial decisions and important decisions going on in the next few days. So please join me in prayer. Achenu kol beis Yisrael hanesunim betzara uveshivya ha'omdim bein bayam uvein bayabasha ha'makayim yirachim aleihem v'yotziim mitzara lirvacha u'me'afela le'oira u'mishibu le'geula hashta ba'agala uvizman kariv v'noimar amen. In English, our brothers, the entire family of Israel, who are delivered into distress and captivity, whether they are on sea or on dry land, may the omnipresent one have mercy on them and remove them from distress to relief, from darkness to life, from darkness to light, from subjugation to redemption, now, speedily, and soon, and let us say Amen. And this is something that we must pray every day, to feel this and to understand this and to connect with our brethren in the Holy Land of Israel. And as we say, our brethren, the entire family of Israel. And I want to talk about this a moment, about the entire family of Israel, as it is connected with the upcoming festival of Shavuot. Because once we have said the prayer, the second is, what do we learn and how do we respond to what is going on? Because as we've been discussing the last few weeks, we don't know why. We cannot answer the question, why does something happen to the Jewish people or to anyone? But although we can't answer why, we must always answer what. What can we do? What can we learn? How can we strengthen ourselves in face of these terrible and challenging times? What is going on is beyond our comprehension. And as we discussed last week, it would be very insensitive and inhuman for us to try to explain human tragedy and suffering. But it is incumbent upon us to learn and to draw a lesson from what is going on. And I want to focus on that lesson. Something strange happens when tragedy strikes. Something strange happens when the whole world or whole community is suddenly put into a state of upheaval. We saw it during COVID. We see it in Israel now. And what happens is that people come together. People who wouldn't talk to each other before, not because they were angry, just people who had no connection before. All of a sudden, everybody feels together. Because when it comes to these kind of tragedies, especially what's going on in Israel, as we've experienced with COVID and terrorism has no discrimination. Well, COVID, what type of human being you are, and then with terrorism, what kind of Jew you are. It strikes everyone equally. And when that happens, it draws out within all of us a certain feeling, a certain oneness. But why? Why does it need to be that way? Why do we always have to wait for tragedy? Why do we always have to wait for an upheaval? Why do we always have to wait for something that strikes us all together to bring out that togetherness that is inherent within us? Why can't that become the norm? Why can't that become something we feel inherently without having to be subjugated to a terrorist attack or a tragic event or a pandemic? How can we feel that and get to that feeling in good times? And just like I've stressed with COVID, as we move out of COVID, Let us remember that lesson. Let us remember how we had time for other people. We were able to pay attention to other people, our spouses, our children, our families, our communities, people that we perhaps were too distracted by previous obligations. As we get back into the grind, into the groove of what we call normal life, let's remember that beauty of being able to connect with other people. And so it is with our Jewish people, what we're going through now. Every Jew feels something. They may not be able to define it, but the Jews that were not feeling part of the same thing together now feel united. How can we capture that to be something that we live with in good times as well? So, my dear friends, everything is in our Torah, and our timeless Torah has always timely messages for the times that we live in. And there's a unique nuance of language in the Torah that the Rebbe points out for us that is an unbelievable lesson in how we can feel that togetherness throughout all times, not just the bad, but even the good, and when things go normal. When the Jewish people were standing at the foot of Mount Sinai, before they were about to receive the Torah describes the scene as follows. Vayichan sham Yisrael neged hahar. The Jewish people were encamped there at the foot of the mountain, ready for this great revelation of God on Mount Sinai. And the great commentator of the Torah, Rashi, makes a comment and says the language is a little unusual. Because if you're talking about a community of people in Hebrew, you use a plural form. It should have said Vayachanu. They encamped at the foot of Sinai. Instead, it uses a singular. He encamped at the foot of Sinai. It wasn't a he. It wasn't an individual. It was millions of people. Yet the Torah uses a singular verse. Why? To teach us that they were there at the mountain at a moment of history, ki ish echad b'lev echad, like one person with one heart. There may have been millions of bodies, but they were there as one person with one heart. Now listen to this message. There's a few verses earlier in the Torah, in the same story, that there's something similar, but so different. When the Egyptians were chasing the Jewish people out of Egypt, and the Jewish people were stuck, or when the Jewish people were left Egypt and they were stuck at the sea before it split, the Torah tells us that they looked behind them. Let me get the verse. They look behind them, and the Torah says they see Mitzrayim nosei achareim. They looked behind them, and they saw all the Egyptians were there to capture them. They were chasing them. They thought they were free. They thought they were done with the Egyptians, and they look back. The Egyptians are there to capture them again. And there the Torah uses something similar, that they look behind them and they see Mitzrayim nosei achareim, that the Egyptians, Egypt, is chasing them or is traveling with them, and it uses the same idea. Not in the plural. It should have been nosim. The Egyptian people were traveling behind them. It says Egyptian people were traveled in singular behind them. And there again, Rashi, the commentator, says, they traveled with one heart, like one person. Now, it sounds very similar. Just like when the Jews were receiving Torah, it was one person with one heart. Here, the Egyptians were one heart with one person. Did you notice a change in language there? When the Jewish people were at the foot of Sinai, Rashi, the commentary, says it was like one person with one heart. When it talks about the Egyptians chasing the Jewish people, it says they were there with one heart, like one person. Now, that may seem like semantics. That may seem like, okay, what's the difference? One heart, one person, one heart. But it's a very deep message here that I want you all to hear, and I want myself to understand as well. Many people can unite as one. The fact that the Jewish people were united as one at the foot of Sinai wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the cause of their unity. See, there's two things that unite people: a cause or just who they are. Many people will unite for a cause. Many different types of people, belev echad, they have a feeling for a certain need. The feeling, the need for that need is what unites them. So you can see boards for every social service department or every issue in the world. When people are united for a cause, it brings them together. It's the cause that brings them together. The heart, what they feel for, brings them together as one unit. But then there's another way that multiple people can unite, not by a cause, but by who they are. Take, for instance, family. You can have many family members. You have a family unit, and they have very different interests. The mom has one interest, the dad has another interest. The siblings have different interests. They have different causes that they care for, but they're still one. They're still a family unit. They're united not by their cause. They're united by who they are as a family. And that family unit gives strength, gives resources, gives stability in a health. When the family is united in a healthy way, it gives stability and strength, not because they all have the same social or personal interests, but because they're all part of a family. And that's what the Torah is telling us. Initially, the Egyptians were one. They were like one person chasing the Jewish people because they were united by the cause to chase and to terrorize the Jewish people. On the other hand, when the Jews stood at Sinai, something happened. We weren't united by a cause. We became a family, a Jewish people. Ish echad. We were united by who we are. And because we were united by who we are, we were able to unite in our hearts and to be one. And this is what the Torah teaches us. Understand and appreciate what you are as a Jew, not what your interests are, but what you are as a Jew. You are part of a family. You're part of a Jewish people. You may have difference of opinions, but what unites us is not our opinions. And boy, we know that. Two Jews, three opinions. It's not our opinions. It's not our interests. It's part of being part of our family, the Jewish unit. And when we understand that, we can be together, not only in times of tragedy, but all the time. Let's focus on who we are, not necessarily of what our interests are. Because unfortunately, the last week has brought home to me a different reality. Not what's going on in Israel, but what's not going on here in the States. Throughout the last year or 2 years, how many times have we seen Jewish people stand up for the rights of others, of other social issues? How many times are all the time, our Jewish brothers and sisters and leaders and political leaders are all out there on the forefronts defending rights for others when they are being discriminated? Where are those voices now to speak out against the terror in Israel? Now, I'm not talking about the political situation in Israel. I'm talking about the fact that there are hundreds of rockets being thrown into Israel indiscriminately, attempting to hurt innocent men, women, and children. This is not a political issue. Political issues are something else, and we can disagree about the politics of Israel. But one thing is clear: the Jewish people in Israel are being terrorized and haunted down and targeted to be killed. Where are all the people that the Jewish people stood up for their rights? Why aren't they defending and speaking out now to defend the Jewish people and that these rockets should stop on one end? You know why, my friends? Because at the end of the day, there's only one people that we can rely on, and that is our own people, the Jewish people. At the end of the day, all we have is each other, the Jewish people. And that's not a bad thing, because when us Jews stay together and feel united, we get a lot of good things done and we accomplish great things. But we have to appreciate that. We have to build on that. We have to feel ki ish echad, we are united by who we are. Let's not be divided by what our interests are. And that's the problem. That's the problem, the challenge that we must have as Jews. Let's not ask, where's everyone else? Let's ask ourselves, where are we? And it's a very sad commentary on the Jewish people in America. Just now, recently, there was a new Pew report about the makeup of the Jewish people. And I kid you not, I'm going to read to you two different things that the Pew report has found that on the one hand may seem funny, but are very sad. When asked which activities and aspects of their lives provide them with the most gratification, listen to this, my friends. Jews in America were asked what provides them with the most gratification. Jewish Americans are more than as likely to say spending time with their pets is more than the religious faith. Fully 43% of the respondents checked spending time with their pets as something that provides them with meaning and fulfillment, compared with only 20% who checks the religious faith. People, Jews in America, are more connected to their pets than they are to their Jewish faith. That is not a good sign. If being connected to your pet brings you more gratification, only 20% of those questioned said that being Jewish brings them gratification, then we need to build and understand that that's what is needed in our community, is to build a greater Jewish identity. Here's another one. Comedy versus kashrut. Jews are known to be funny, but who would have, this is the report, who would have imagined this trait would be considered more essential to Jewish identity than observing basic religious commandments? Indeed, more than a third of respondents, 34%, checked having a good sense of humor as an essential part of being Jewish means to them. More than twice the share, 50%, who checked observing Jewish law. So for 2-to-1, Jewish humor is more important, and understanding Jewish humor is more important than understanding and observing Jewish law. Now, these are findings, and I don't even know why they ask these type of questions. But this is the point. The point is, what we need to learn is what is the true strength of the Jewish people. And we need to strengthen our identity, because as the Pew result just showed, what being a Jew is not really understood by most Jewish people. And the more we can understand that, the greater it is. And therefore, this Shavuos is the holiday in which we gained our Jewish identity. Let this Jewish holiday be a time that we resolve our Jewish identity. Shavuos was a time where we were taught that what's important and what unites us is more than our causes, is our being as a Jewish people. Let's strengthen that. And I have a challenge. Each denomination, every Jew looks at other Jews. They are other Jews. They are different than me. Orthodox Jews can look at non-observant Jews as they're the others. But my sad reality of my own experience is that other Jews look at me and Orthodox Jews as the others. Let's make a resolution, and let's stop looking at Jews as the others. Choose a denomination. Choose as a group of Jews for whom you think that they are other, and say, you know what? They may be other in their hearts, but we are one family. And when we become one family, even though they may be different, I still want to be connected to that person because they're part of that family. And when we're able to do that, we will persevere. That is our strength, and that is our power to overcome all of the greatest challenges. Let's act as one, and we will persevere. And therefore, in face of all the challenges and struggles that are bringing out this unity, let's try to hold on and understand deeper what that unity is. And specifically in this time of Shavuos, where it talks about one person with one heart, it talks about the identity of being a Jew. Strengthen your understanding of an identity. Strengthen the way you look at another Jew, that they're part of that identity. And together, let's be as one. because we are one. And I want to conclude with a story, a beautiful story of the Rebbe that describes this and illustrates this in a very powerful way. The story is about an individual called Aaron Dandrowitz. Aaron Dandrowitz was about 5 years old when his father fell very ill. And there's a lot of commotion in his house. And he doesn't remember what exactly happened then. He doesn't remember what was the cause of the father's illness. But one thing he knows, that his father recovered and lived for an extra 40 years. So he was able to have his dad for 40 years extra. During Shiva, when his dad passed, now he's 45, this fellow individual, whose name was Israel Radzinski, comes to pay a Shiva call. And he tells Aaron, let me tell you the story about your father. You may not know what happened, but I do. And Israel starts to tell Aaron, I was very good friends with your father. In fact, we survived the Holocaust together. We were in the same camp, and we survived, and we made it to America. And we kept a very strong bond that only survivors can have. When we survived and came to the shores of America together, your father fell very ill. He had this unusual kind of infection that they needed to operate close to the brain, and the doctors were very skeptical. The doctors thought that if they had to operate, but as a result of this operation, he may remain a vegetable for the rest of his life. And they didn't know what to do. This was post-war. And they decided that they'll write to 23 Jewish rabbinic leaders around the world to find a solution, to find advice on how to do this. And no one answered, except one, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe responded to him that he should engage in the study of Chitas, which is a daily study of the Torah, Tanya, and saying of Psalms. And if he engages in this daily study, he will be fine. So I was a close friend of your dad, he says, and your dad was in no position to study. He couldn't focus on anything. He couldn't concentrate on anything. So I called the Rebbe's office, and I told him that it's impossible for him to study. So they were back and forth in touch with the Rebbe and I, and the Rebbe sent a message to me, well, if he can't, let someone in his family study for him. So I wrote back, I told the office back, but he's a Holocaust survivor. He has no family. There's no family there for him. So the Rebbe responded, if that's the case, have a friend do the studying for him on his behalf. And Israel turns to Aaron and says, I was the friend. Until today, I've been studying those sections of Torah. A friend and a family in the Jewish people are the same. Because we may not be a biological brother or sister, but we are united by what transpired at the foot of Sinai when we became one unit, one family. And that's why we are concerned what happens to another Jewish person, whether around the corner or in this country or in Israel. That's why what we do can help our Jewish brothers and sisters in the land of Israel. And that's why once, please God, we pass this crisis, let's take this as a lesson. The same way I felt connected to my Jewish brothers and sisters in the land of Israel during this moment of crisis, I am in fact connected to every Jewish brother and sister throughout the entire world. Let's not focus on the difference of opinions. Let's focus on the family that we are. And when we strengthen Ish Echad, who we are as a people, in good times, that will bring a closer heart. Because although we may have different political views or different spiritual or religious views, it doesn't change the fact that we are all one family. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Have a wonderful Shavuos. And now is the time for us to look at the questions to see if there are any questions that are here, and then to respond accordingly as well. If those who want to wish the community a good Shabbos, you feel free to do so as well, while I'll check now the questioning. Let me see the questions. Someone texted a question. Let me type that up right now quickly. Nice question. Okay, I'm going to put this question up. In the meantime, those that want to wish good Shabbos to the community can do so. So this is the question that someone asked while I was speaking. What can we do practically? And number two, how is Esti? For those who don't know, Esti is my daughter who lives in Israel with her husband and two children in Tel Aviv. And Baruch Hashem, they're doing well. They're safe. And I get a constant report. And I could only pray for their safety amongst the safety for everyone else. You know, when you have your own real family member there, or physical, biological family member, because they're all family, remember we said that, you feel it a little stronger. But thank God Esti and her kids and her husband are all fine and safe and leading their community with strength and with faith in northern Tel Aviv. But what can we do practically? That's a great question. And here comes another aspect of spiritual faith. Practically do a mitzvah. One of the things that Judaism teaches us is that the physical limitations are only physical. We believe there's physical limitations, but spiritually there are no limitations. When we do a mitzvah here in America, that spiritual energy boosts the soldier on the front line. The soldier on the front line is putting on tefillin, and when he knows that I'm putting on my tefillin and that we're am echad, that we're one people, that gives them the morale and the strength that they need, because they feel that they're not fighting for themselves. They're fighting for you and I. The soldiers on the front lines feel one family. Feel a family, not just the moms and dads that are waiting for them at home, but the family of the entire Jewish people, the home of this family, which is Israel, that they are defending. So just like they feel us, and they're doing this for us, do a mitzvah. If you're a man, put on your tefillin. If you're a woman, light your Shabbos candles. Light the candles on Yontif. Give tzedakah. Study Torah. Study not because it's only good for you. Study with the intention to help our brothers and sisters and family members and soldiers in the land of Israel. And it will help them. That is something spiritual, but something practical and something real and something that soldiers report helps them, knowing that the Jewish people have their backs, not only physically, but spiritually, by giving them that support. It's a great question. And we got to do a lot. We can do a lot. And don't underestimate that one little spiritual activity. Let me get to the Shabbos greetings. Ina Sherman. Start with Ina. Great message, Rabbi Shem Tov. Good Shabbos to the whole community. Nita is here. Good Shabbos. Let me move this so I can read it. Good Shabbos to all. Good Shabbos, Anita. You have Sheila, good Shabbos, and then a good Yontif from Sar Malk and Larry. That's right. So now you don't only wish good Shabbos to everyone, you can wish them a happy Shavuos. Susan Cohen, Shabbat Shalom to our family. Sherry, Klimo, Barry, and I wish you a peaceful and healthy Shabbos. Thank you, and to all the entire Jewish people. And the last one I have here is Howard. Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom to your family in Israel elsewhere. Good Shabbos to all. Good Shabbos to you, Barry. If anyone has one last minute comment, now is the time to do so before we sign off. And as I see that there are no more comments coming through, I want to wish everyone a wonderful and meaningful Shabbos, an inspiring Shavuos. And as we said before, we don't know why things happen, but we know what we can learn from what happened. And what we can learn from what's going on now is that we're all family, we're a strong family, and when we'll be Ish Echad and feel that family strongly, then we'll be able to come together. B'lev Echad. Good Shabbos, good Yontif. And one more plug, if you need anything for Yontif, don't forget to go to our website, jewishcenter.info/Shavuos. It's all there, a lot of good things, a lot of good dairy treats. You'll know where to get them. All right, my dear friends, have a good Shabbos, have a good Yontif. Oops.